All right, Shavua Tov. We'll start with the wonders of Parshas Noah. Very interesting parasha that I'm hoping everyone enjoyed. We used to have the wonders before the parasha was read on Shabbat, and for this reason, it was less exciting to speak about something that is going to happen. But now that it happened, we can talk about Noah and everything that happened during the parasha. So it's a good time to connect to that. Very interestingly, that we look at the world at the time of Noah as one. I always like to look at it as a computer that needed a reset button. That the world is one big place, and it needed to be conduced to one small place, very small place, and then at the end of the parasha, the Noah comes out of the teva and then expands back to catch the whole world. So there's a concept here of construction, like putting the whole world into one small place. That concept is actually something very deep from Kabbalah that we learned. We're not gonna dive into it too much just because it's definitely not my area of expertise, the Kabbalah side of things. Although, just like all the students of Rabbi Ginzburg, we try to connect to it as much as possible. So the concept is Kabbalah is called the Tzimtzum, which means that before the creation, the beginning of creation, the light of Hashem was everywhere. There was only God, and the light of God was consuming everything. There was no room for anything, especially for a world that's such a low level. In order to create the world, there was a tzimtzum. It was a contraction. God created basically a black hole somewhere in the middle where the light supposedly, we know from the Baal Shem Tov that this whole story is just it's just an example. It's not a real tzimtzum, meaning God didn't take his being, quote unquote, to be out of a certain place. However, in the simple explanations, we have a construction, we have a black place, and in that black place, God put a beam of light that came out of the darkness, and that beam of light is always referred to as the righteous people, the tzaddikim of every generation. In our parasha, you can look at it as Noah and his teva, the whole story could be looked upon as one beam of light in one big black hole. And from that light is we have spirituality, we have this world, we have darkness and light, and then starts the creation of the world. So that's one introduction that I wanted to touch a little bit so that we understand what we want to discuss, the story that we want to discuss today. Now, the story that Rabbi Ginzburg brings, this is in the second part of the wonders of this week, is the famous story that we actually spoke about a couple months ago, and that Rabbi Ginzburg speaks about many, many times, because it's a story that speaks about Mashiach, and the question that we all ask all the time is, when is Mashiach coming? So we'll say the story very in short. The story is that the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he found Eliyahu. Let's see if there's any. Okay. No. He found Eliyahu and Elijah, the prophet, that we know he did not die. He went up to heaven, and he's very involved in this world. We know that every bris, every circumcision that we have, Eliyahu Navi comes, and having Eliyahu with us is very common. We look at him as someone that's very involved in this world, but his special involvement that we always sing about it, whoever is accustomed to it on Motzei Shabbat, right after Shabbat, we have some songs. We always speak about Eliyahu. Why is that? So the simple explanation is that right after Shabbat is a time supposedly Mashiach does not come on, because we're already at a high level. It's a high enough day that Mashiach doesn't come. So right after Shabbat, we want Mashiach to come. So who comes before Mashiach? Elijah the prophet. And we'll see in the story that he has a big part in Mashiach's coming. In any case, we see over here that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi from the Gemara, he found Eliyahu Navi. And where did he find him? Where was he? He was at the opening of the cave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So very interesting place. We always connect to Rabbi Shimon. We know that Am Yisrael in general connects to him. Unfortunately, we know that this year was a very sad situation in that connection. But it's a very high connection between Am Yisrael and Rabbi Shimon. And in that connection, which again, we won't talk about, Rabbi Ginzburg doesn't elaborate on this class, but in that connection, we have two people meeting. We have on the one hand, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and we have on the other hand, Eliyahu Navi, and they're meeting over there, and they're talking, and he said, am I going to be in the world to come? A couple other questions, but then he comes to the main question. So he says to Eliyahu Navi, when is Mashiach coming? When is our galus over? when are we going to see Mashiach? So Eliyahu Navi says, go ask him. Okay, interesting challenge. He says, where Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked him, where does he sit? He says, Apitcha de Karka. He sits at the opening of the city, which means that time Rome was the city. He sits at the opening of the city of Rome. I think if I want to translate it with carefulness, because it's my translation, I would translate it to downtown Rome. The literal translation is at the gate, but the gates of cities those days was a very big place of gathering. It was a very well-connected place. It was a place where many people would come, and whether it's judgment, that we know that judges were sitting in the gates of the cities. It's what we call today downtown, if I could translate it. He says anyway. So Eliyahu Navi said to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, go to the gates of Rome, and right over there you will find Mashiach. So he says, okay, but how do I find him? To find downtown one guy that no one knows what he looks like, it's going to be tough. So Eliyahu Navi gives him a sign. What is the sign? That if you go to the gate, there's an area of all the, again, this is not the translation, but I'm going to say the homeless people. In the literal translation was the Mitzorayim. Today, Baruch Hashem, people that are sick go to the hospital. I'm assuming back then, different sicknesses, they wouldn't necessarily go to the hospital. They would go to a place, a designated place, I would say, in the gates of the city, where all the people that were ill, that had sarat, which if you look at the simple explanation in the Torah, if anyone can put on the chat what the literal translation of sarat is, but it has different. Let me find it, since no one's helping me on the chat. Let me find what Google said. Oh, that's right, leprosy. So thank you. Thank you to Ilan. It has, it's an illness where you have to basically take care of yourself a lot. It has a lot of bad spots on the skin, on the body, and you have to be constantly treating it. And he said that when you go to that place, you'll notice something interesting. Everyone, the way they treat themselves, they take out all the bandages, they take care of themselves, and then they put the bandages back. Where Mashiach, he does one bandage at a time. And why is that? Because he's nervous that when he takes care of that bandage, Hashem will tell him, listen, it's time to get out there and redeem and bring the Geula. And he doesn't want to be caught up taking care of, he will have a couple minutes to put the bandages together. So that's how you will find him. So he goes out there and he tries to look for him, and then we'll make the long story short. He asks him, when are you coming? And Mashiach tells him, today. Okay, very exciting. Okay, so he goes home, and unfortunately, nothing happened, as we know, since we're a couple thousand years after, not a couple, close to 2,000 years after. So he goes back and meets Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi, and he says, he lied to me. He said, I'm coming today, and he did not come. So then Eliyahu Navi explains to him, what he told you is Hayom, today, im bekorot tishma'u. If you listen to the words, the literal translations to the words of Hashem. And again, we had this story many times and many, looking at it from many different angles, because it has the confidence of Mashiach. And we know when we're connected in this generation to our Lubavitch Rebbe that would always say that Mashiach is coming, Mashiach is today. There's a story that once one of the students fainted in the Fabring in 770 because when they took him out, he says, the Rebbe said Mashiach is today, he's coming. So there's a huge confidence that that Mashiach has, and we want to take from that confidence, as we'll see, and learn from it. But what the first thing that Rabbi Yitzchak wants us to look at is that there are three main characters in this story. One is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who, if you look at the simple, he looks at it from, obviously he's on a much higher level, but from our perspective of we need Mashiach. Two is Eliyahu Navi. Elijah the prophet is already not in this world completely, but he's also not in the next world completely. So some something in the middle, like someone that's trying to create an average between being completely up in Shamayim and completely down in this world. And then we have Mashiach. Mashiach is sitting on a much higher level, very connected, and he has his level. Now, there's two views in this story. One view is the view of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that Mashiach is nowhere to be seen. And again, if we look at it, I mean, if we want to look at the view from the most pessimistic and most down-to-earth view, it's a very tough situation, because we're not seeing him even close. We're seeing tremendous amount of darkness and problems and people just being people, and we're not seeing the redemption. It's not that we're seeing, I mean, with the way the things look in this world, they don't look much better in terms of holiness and Mashiach and the world to come. So that's our view. And we have the view of Mashiach that sees that everything is ready. I'm coming today. And he really believes in it. And this is what we're gonna speak about. Interesting story is that when Rabbi Ginzburg gave this class in his house, it was a private minyan that we had. And at the end of it, I asked him, I said, what an emunah that, that we need to connect to the belief of Mashiach, and we'll speak about it more. And Rabbi Yitzchak said, yeah, that's tzaddik be'emunato yechia, that this emunah is what keeps us living, this big emunah, and we all need to connect to it. So this emunah of Mashiach, the faith that he has in the fact that the world is ready for him, is unbelievable. and all of a sudden we have it's called memutza. Memutza could be, I mean, the literal translation that I know is an average, but I'm sure there's a better word. If maybe Ilana or someone wants to give us a better word for it. We have Eliyahu Navi in the middle, and he tries to connect the two dots. And what he tells them is, today, if you listen, and the literal translation is if you listen to God, if you guys do tshuva, and just like the Rambam said that at the end of days, Am Yisrael will do tshuva, and then right away they will be redeemed. However, there's another explanation that not in the world, don't just listen to the words of Hashem, listen also to Mashiach. Mashiach is saying today, in the kolo, in his voice, whose voice, you can listen to Mashiach's voice and believe that he's coming today. And if you believe it, you will act this way. And if you act this way, that's not Hashem. Mashiach will come. So that translation is the key word over here is hayo. If we want to say, we know that the Lubavitcher wrote the Yom Yom, but we also know that in Sfirat HaOmer, when we count the days, we say Hayom Yom. So there's 2 days. There's Hayom, which is the literal translation is the day, today's day. But I want to explain that Hayom is a higher level, the day. That's what Rabbi Ginzburg looks at it as we talked before, that there's a contracting, a tzimtzum before the world, and now there's 2 views. There's the view of the darkness, the area that God, quote unquote, removed his direct light, and there's the view of Hashem, of the light before the contraction, before the world was before the world was created, but it's also right now. We know that God is creating the world every instant. So there's a view that comes from basically from God's view, and there's a view that we look at things. So the view that comes from Hashem is Hayom, and if we want to look at it from that view, all days it's one big day. So there's a pasuk that says Keyom etmol ki yavor, and that 1,000 years, that 1,000 years is like one day, because when you're looking at things from above, it all comes together. There's a beautiful story of Rav Nachman from Breslov. It's a long story, but the end of the story, after all troubles, when comes to the end of the story and the son of the king comes to the king, the king tells him to turn around, and he sees that all the troubles that happened were no troubles at all. So when you look at it from the view of the one above, that the knowledge of God, everything is ready, everything is good, everything is where it's supposed to be. But when you look at it from our view, that's yom. There's a day, every day. As we say, we live day by day, and every day we open our eyes and see. We say Modani, but we still need Mashiach. The day that we are seeing is not the same as the day that Hashem is seeing. There's a huge contradiction between how Mashiach sees it and how Hashem sees it from above, and how we see it from below. And that contradiction is why Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi tells Eliyahu Navi that Mashiach is lying. Because the way I see it, he did not come today the way he promised. So how do we connect that? How do we overcome this issue? That there's 2 different views. There's the view from above where everything is fine, and there's the view from below where nothing is fine. And what do we do? So what we do is, and this is what Eliyahu Navi teaches us, Hayom in Bekolo Tishma. You have to listen in the most deepest sense to how Mashiach is saying it, to how Hashem is saying it in all ways, to how all the tzaddikim, to how Torah is saying, but you have to listen to what they are saying and connect it to this world. we know that Eliyahu Navi is like he's connecting the two pieces, connecting the word letavech in Hebrew is so I'm sorry. So Ginzburg is saying that there's a bigger meaning of the connection that Eliyahu Navi does, and the meaning is that he gives the Besorah, that he announces Mashiach, and Besorah is the same letters as Basar, as giving it meat. So, and this is a very big lesson, I think, for us all, is that what Eliyahu Navi is doing is giving the Mashiach is saying today. Eliyahu, Rabbi Yishua ben Levi is saying you're lying, and that could be the end of it, Chas v'shalom. But what Eliyahu Navi does is gives the day that Mashiach is saying meat. How does he do it? By connecting it to the pasuk, to the Torah, and bringing it something that we can understand. I mean, the simple explanation that Mashiach says today, if you listen, if you do tshuva, that's already something that we can understand. If there's just the same, Mashiach just says, "I'm coming today." There's no connection. We don't understand. What do you mean? Okay, fine. So you're saying you're coming today. What does that have to do with me? If we look at it in our generation, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, the world is ready, Mashiach is coming. Okay, what do you want from me? So that statement could be something that's way up there and not connected to us. That connection is through Eliyahu Navi, and what that connection is by taking the word and connecting to him through Torah. And that is what the tzaddikim is doing. And Rabbi Ginzburg, what he does is not only takes that pasuk of Hayom im bekolo dishma, but says, okay, if we know that the key word is Hayom, let's look at all the other psukim that say Hayom, all the core psukim that Hayom is a big part of them, and see how they're connecting us to the same statement. So we have a connection that allows us to bring Mashiach closer to bring that view of the way Hashem sees it, closer to us. And once we're able to become a vessel for that view, if we look at it as the light of Hashem coming to us and us being able to connect to it, the way that Hashem connects these two, as it says, Kel deot avaya velo nitkenu alilot, that God takes those two views, those two knowledges, the two deot, and is able to handle them together, meaning God is able to take both the Da'at Tachton, the way we see things, and the way Da'at Elyon, the way Hashem sees it, and put them together and live in harmony with both these views, which to us is something that we cannot understand. What do you mean? Either Mashiach is here or is not here. There's no middle ground. But being able to not say there's a middle ground, which is Eliyahu Navi's point, but rather saying that they're both here and not here completely, that is something that we cannot. It's against the laws of knowledge, of science, of the way we understand things. So that connection of being able to connect those two views, that's part of the coming of Mashiach. That gives the Besorah, the big statement that Mashiach is coming. It gives it meat, basar, and being able to connect to it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the second part of this. We don't have a lot of time, but this is very important to give an example of how this connection is. And the example is something amazing that Rav Ginzburg brings out of this story. And the word comes from Maharal, that I see a question here in the chat, but I'm not sure I get it. So if you want to ask again in a different way. So if you ask again, I'll try to answer. The story has an interesting twist. What is the twist? The way to find Mashiach. The Mashiach is sitting with the people that are ill and that have leprosy, as Ilana brought us the translation. and he does something that all the other people don't do. First of all, the Maharal explained who are those people? What is this Shah Romi? So first he explained that the Shah, the gate, is the place above where things come out of, meaning that everything in this world, every concept in this, there's a saying about the Baal Shem Tov that any svara, any thought, any dvar Torah, any explanations, any point of view that you had, the Baal Shem Tov could contradict it, could say the opposite. Why is that? Because the Baal Shem Tov was very connected to the ayin, to, as we said, the nothing, or the contraction, the black hole that we are in our example, that we're saying that creates things, that the yesh comes out of, that something is coming from nothing. When you go back to the point of nothing, you're able to bring it out in a different way. What that means is, and this is more my understanding of it, so I put it in parentheses, that there is a place where there's room for a kingdom like Romi, for systems, for operations, for we usually look at let's call it the rule of law, or we look at civilization as something that inherently hurts some people in order to make sure that most people are living okay. And the same thing with Romi. Romi, the way they did a lot of good things to the world. They created bridges and roads and connected and brought water. Lots of good things they did. But on the other hand, they killed many, many people in order to make sure that their point of view is heard. So if you look at it, you can say that they're the worst thing out there. If we can just put apart this organization, this kingdom of Rome, if we can just take it away, then we'll be good. But there's a point where there's good that could come out of it. Meaning there's a point that if it wouldn't go to Rome, but rather it would go to Mashiach, who's sitting in that gate, he could take it and make good use of it. Meaning a king, if we look at, let's put in parentheses and talk about today. We always look for Melech HaMashiach, King Mashiach. Do we want kings? We know how kings were and how kings are today in Africa or various places where there's kings. They're usually not the best place to live, where there's dictators of different type. Yeah, there's lots of problems with democracy, but at the end of the day, it works best. Why? Because the way it works is when there's power, it corrupts, as we know, and then things are not good. But all of a sudden, we as Jews say, no, there's a kingdom, the kingdom of Mashiach. That would be a great thing. It's hard to believe, to have faith in, that we can have a king that's a good king, that wants to do, and not just wants, does good to all. But that is the point that Mashiach comes out of. We have to believe that Mashiach will do good to everyone. Won't be, whenever a king comes up, he knows he has to have an enemy. You have to take someone out in order to make sure that your kingdom is doing well. Mashiach does not. The opposite. Mashiach takes care of everyone. Okay, let's close the parentheses and go back to the point that we're trying to explain. The point is that there's bandages on the illnesses, and all the other people take out all the bandages together and clean or treat the wounds and put them back. And Mashiach does one at a time. Now, who are those people? So in our example, the Maharal explained that those people are the tzaddikim, the righteous people of every generation. They're connecting to Mashiach. Mashiach, the illnesses are us, basically. Every pain, every illness that the righteous people have is basically us doing things that we shouldn't, or being unconnected, and then that creates an illness. And the righteous people, the tzaddikim, are suffering together in order to help Mashiach with his suffering. And that is a major concept that we know, that every time that we do something that's not good, that we're creating an illness. Especially in this year where we're trying, Be'ezrat Hashem, to have a refuah shlama. He didn't say in the beginning to everyone, especially to our Rabbi Yitzchak 5 and everyone should be healthy. Health is doing the right thing. Ginzburg had a class, we learned about it a couple months ago, about the fact that that being unhealthy or death is the highest level of evil of a mother. But the simple sense is that we're trying to make things well. Now, what is the difference? And this is a core point that we should dwell on. The difference is that the righteous people, all the other tzaddikim, they think that in order to fix the situation, you got to take out all the bandages and treat everything. Meaning, if we translate it to what we just explained, you have to take care of all the problems that we're creating, and everyone needs to do tshuva, and then only then Mashiach can come. But Mashiach doesn't look at it that way. Mashiach looks at things, we said, from the point of view of Hashem, where everything is connected to everything. And one Jew and one person, one good deed is enough. Everything is within one. There's no separation. So that the belief that and now the Mashiach has is that if we fix this one point, and let's talk in our language, if we make this one Jew connect to Torah, this one Jew woman light Shabbos candles, put on tefillin, if we make one Torah, we speak about one Dvar Torah and we do it well, we do it right, we take care of it, that's it. Mashiach could come. It's not an all or nothing game, or the opposite. It's an all within one. One person can do it all. And that is the faith of Mashiach. And that is the difference between the way Mashiach sees things and the way other tzaddikim, which are very righteous and holy people, but the way they see it. That their faith is in one big cloud, in everybody, in fixing everything, which is very complicated from our view. But Mashiach looks at it and says, no, everything is connected to one thing. And if you do one thing right, that's it. You can fix the whole world if you do this one mitzvah and you do it right. It puts a lot of challenge on every person and everything that we do. This could be it. And if we look at Mashiach, he says, this is it. I'm coming today. I'm ready. That is a huge emunah. That's what I asked from Ginzburg at the end of the class, that the belief that everything we do, every point that we have is connected to everything. And if we do it right, if we do it well, Be'ezrat Hashem, that could be the tipping point of complete redemption to everything. That is a point of view of Mashiach. And that is the emunah of Mashiach. And we need to bring it to what we do. And if we bring it to our day-to-day, it will make our whole, the way we operate, the different operations that we have or within us, when you're at home with the family, just smiling to one person to another, that's it. That's Mashiach. And if we connect to it well, now again, we can connect a little bit to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that he's saying that Mashiach is lying. Really? You're telling me that if only I behave nicely at home and really give my house and make it a place of Torah and a place of good deeds, and that will solve the world's problem? Bring world peace by doing one good deed? That just sounds out there. And you're right, that is the point of view of Hashem. That's not something that we can easily connect to. But we as Jews have that connection, and we're able to connect to that faith that Mashiach have, and if we connect to that faith and bring it to the day-to-day that we do, that brings Mashiach, as the Rebbe says always, Mashiach now, that he's able to take every nega, which is illness, and turn it to oneg, to pleasure. When you fix something, when you do it well, it brings a lot of pleasure. Okay, so that was the second nekuda, the second class that Rabbi Ginzburg gave in the wonders of Parshah Noach. I urge everybody to read it inside and to connect to it And we as students should really connect, especially to what we spoke about Elijah, Eliyahu Navi, that he needs to make it have meat, make it worthwhile, that we can have it something that's real, that's connected, that we can explain and understand. And as we bring this truth of the Mashiach, and Rabbi Ginzburg explains that this is the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov is so connected to Mashiach, with being Mashiach, that he explained these things and touched on these points. And this is why we say that there's Hashgacha Pratit, that God watches every single small thing, and not only watches, he makes sure that it goes according to plan. So that connecting to God's plan is not only a big picture plan, which is how the world looks at it, if they're even at the level of having that faith, connecting to God as a big picture God, but rather connecting to God in every single thing that we do. That is the Baal Shem Tov, that is the view of Mashiach. And if we do it right, then we're able to, the small things connect the big things together and create one big view that is able to redeem the world and bring Geulah. Okay, we have a few minutes, so if anyone has a question, definitely welcome to do it. I don't know if you can unmute or just put it on the chat. I'll try to answer. Okay, so there's a question here of what are we gaining by saying all this? What is the difference between saying Mashiach in general and saying today? And why did the Rebbe stress now? What is the difference between, and what I think we can learn from this class is that the difference is the amunah, the faith. Saying to someone that there will be good, Baruch Hashem, today that is widespread. Most people believe that the world is headed to a good place. Granted, some people, when they're really earthly and look at things from a lower point of view, could say that that's not the case, but most believe in a happy ending. We know that almost every story that we have has a happy ending, even fictions or any stories that we look at. However, the difference between that and Mashiach is saying that happy ending is now, is with this little act, is with what we do right now. That is a much higher level of faith, to believe that the small thing that we do is what Mashiach needs in order to come. That's already a much higher level than just saying Mashiach. And that's in that level, if we're able to bring it, the Rebbe would call it to open our eyes. To open our eyes to what we're able to do, what each and every person is able to accomplish. So that is the difference. Any other questions? If not, we may end a little bit early today. So thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to do good deeds today and bring this world to a better place, Bezrat Hashem, and especially strong health to Rabbi, Ginzburg, and everyone else around us, Bezrat Hashem. And everyone should have a real Shavua Tov, connecting to Elijah, to Eliyahu Navi that we just got out of Shabbat, and he should lead us to a good place.